your statutes. In the New Testament, James, the half-brother of Jesus, writes, "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing." Difficulty, storms, hardship have a purpose. They have something to teach us. This is what we see with the disciples. Let's keep reading. We'll see what the storm has to teach them. Verse 25. "And in the fourth watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, 'It is a ghost.' And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, 'Take heart, do not be afraid.'" So somewhere between the hours of 3 a.m. and 6 a.m., after the disciples have been battling the storm for hours upon hours, Jesus shows up in the storm. And he does so in a miraculous way. Jesus comes walking on the water. And it's interesting, this miraculous act by Jesus allows the disciples to see Jesus in a way that they had not seen him before. Listen, storms do that. Difficulty does that. This is, again, why this premise that we need storms, that we are often sent into storms as a means of grace, becomes real again. This is what we're seeing with the disciples. They now understand Jesus in a way that they would not have seen him or known him before. This is what seasons of difficulty do for us as Christians. How many stories have you heard? How many of you have even experienced this yourself, that you enter into a season of hardship and a season of difficulty, and your circumstances change and things go bad? And at the same time, there is a sweetness to that season because Jesus is near. You experience Christ and his nearness and his peace in a way that you had not experienced before. You know him more intimately than you would have had you not gone through that particular season of difficulty. Storms do this. Storms produce this in us. It's interesting to me with the disciples. Jesus, they'd seen Jesus heal, but seeing Jesus heal does not do what this does. They'd just seen Jesus feed 5,000 plus with 5 loaves and 2 fish, but even seeing that act does not do what seeing Jesus walking on the water does. Jesus walking on the water and to them during the middle of that storm brings to them an understanding that the disciples did not have before, that Jesus is the Son of God. We see it in verse 33. "And those in the boat worshipped him, saying, 'Truly you are the Son of God.'" This is new in Matthew's gospel. God has said it. We've even seen and read that demons have said it. But now for the first time, the disciples say and begin to understand that Jesus is the Son of God. Well, listen, it took the storm. It took being tossed at sea, fighting the wind and fighting the waves for hours, and then finally Jesus showing up on the water to bring them to this understanding. Now they've experienced, now they see Jesus in this new way that they had not experienced before. Not only did the storm bring them this greater understanding, but I believe the storm also strengthened their faith. Let's look at verse 28 through 33. It says, "And Peter answered him, 'Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water.' And he said, 'Come.' So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, 'Lord, save me.' And Jesus immediately reached out his hand, took hold of him, saying, 'O you of little faith, why did you doubt?' And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat worshipped him, saying, 'Truly you are the Son of God.'" There is a few obvious observations that we can draw from Peter's brief walk on the water. I'm not sure how far Peter got. I don't know how many steps he took. I don't know. But Peter walks on the water until he begins to focus on the storm. It would seem the implications of that, as long as Peter had his eyes on Jesus, he was able to walk on the water, and it was not until he began to focus on his circumstances, as he began to notice that the storm was raging around him, that he began to sink. I credit Peter for having enough faith to get out of the boat, and I credit Peter for a great prayer when he's sinking. Lord, save me. Folks, that is a great prayer when you're in a storm. Simple and to the point. Lord, save me. But I also want to be very careful here drawing these implications out. If we come away this morning believing that if we can just somehow produce enough faith that we can walk on water, then we've missed the point. As one pastor puts it, this is not a lesson about walking on water. This is a lesson that you can't walk on water, but Jesus can. What we need to come away from this morning is that we need Jesus. In all of life, we need to cling to Jesus. In a storm, we need to cling and focus on Jesus. When things are good and the storm is not raging, we need to cling and focus on Jesus. This is not about us building our faith and doing this in our own will. This is not about placing our faith in the strength of our faith. This is not about weathering storms or walking on water. It's about understanding we can't do those things, and so we need Jesus. It's about trusting Jesus. It's not about our faith. It's about the object of our faith. It's about the person that we place our faith in. It's about having faith in Jesus and knowing when life gets stormy, when life gets hard, when there is difficulty, and there's the loss of a job, and there is a death in the family, and there is a global pandemic, COVID-19. Which is a storm, it would seem. We know the one that is sovereign over storms. And listen, we may not walk on water. And if we're honest and we look at life from a very real perspective, it may be that the storm may never subside this side of eternity. But the Son of God is with us. And that's enough. That's enough. Listen, I know there is a great deal of uncertainty out there right now. I know that for many of us, this feels like we are in quite a storm. I know that there are many questions that are not answered. There are many perspectives out there that are unique. I understand all that this morning. Let me encourage you that Jesus, the Son of God, is sovereign over storms. And folks, He is sovereign over COVID-19. He walks on and through the storms. I don't know, and it would be foolish to try to give you some insight on what the outcome of this will be. I don't know. But I know there is a purpose in this for us who are under the banner of Christ. Listen, this storm that we are in, this season of difficulty, for those of us who are in Christ, has a purpose, and it is for our good, and it is for His glory. I'd even further say there's something in this that many of us perhaps will learn or experience, that will come away with a fuller understanding of Jesus Christ that we never would have had we not have gone through this season of difficulty. Let me encourage you today that you can trust Him. Let me encourage you today to seek Him and know that He's going to give you the strength to get through this. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Father God, we do understand from the Scriptures that often our seasons of difficulty, Lord, are ways and means in which You're drawing us to Yourself. Father, they are a means of grace. Father, I pray that You'd grant us the ability this morning to embrace that for what it is. Father, I don't know all of the outcomes of what we're facing as a world are going to be. But Father, I know that You're good. And I know that You are working all things for good for those who are called according to Your purpose and for Your glory. Father, and I pray that You would help us all to rest in that. Father, we do pray from our own selfish perspective that You would keep us healthy, that You would keep us safe. Father, that You would bring this sickness, Lord, to an end quickly. But Father, as we do stand and see the raging storm around us, Father, I pray that you'd grant us a biblical perspective. Father, I pray that you'd grant us as the church, your people, Lord, this calm. And Father, that we would display this calmness to the world, Father, and that people would be baffled by our calmness. And Father, we grant us opportunities, Lord, to share the gospel with our neighbors and our friends and our loved ones that are experiencing the same thing we are, but Father, without your peace. Father, I pray that even in the middle of COVID-19, Lord, that we are about your business without fear, without trepidation, knowing, God, that you're good and you're sovereign and we can trust you. Even when the winds and the waves are crashing around us, Father, grant us this capacity. Lord, we love you and we thank you for Jesus. And we ask all these things in his good name. Amen.